Thank you for being with us today. We are having a powerful week here on the program. Started yesterday, and there's a sense that the Lord, by His Spirit, is speaking to people's lives, especially a message of hope. Our theme is When Life Hurts, based on Brian Stiller's book, When Life Hurts, A Threefold Path to Healing. And we're keenly aware that many people, maybe like never before in our lifetime, maybe during the world wars, it was similar pain, but we're going through a lot of pain. And we have a message of hope. And so I'm going to continue to talk with Brian Stiller in just a moment. But first, Dean Morris is also here, and you've been giving us a brief update of our missions outreach. Let me say to you, when I first thought of reaching language groups that have very few Christians in them, big languages like Hindi, very few Christians, I thought social media is something you watch for 30 seconds or a minute, you see a video here and there. And then we started to explore this, Dean, and give a little report of the campaign we did to those who speak the language of Tamil, sure, which is a language spoken in southern India and many parts of the world, and Urdu. So I'll let you take it away. Give us first the Tamil update.
Absolutely. So with the Tamil update, you can see the numbers right there on your screen. We've had 7,531,742 people reached. And then the biggest, most important number is 722,667 participated in the entire campaign. And what that means that those 722,000 is that from beginning to end, they were there, they heard the gospel presentation, they saw healing testimonies, they had the opportunity to participate in the salvation prayer, the healing prayer, and they were offered follow-up material in the Tamil language. And we had so many reports come in, and I have a few of them that I thought were incredible. One was a Muslim man named Mohammed from Colombo, Sri Lanka, and he messaged, and this is what he said. He said in all capitals, "I want to know this Jesus." Right in the middle of the campaign. And then Ranjit, a Hindu man from India, he messaged in saying, "I've never heard a message like this before. I want my sins to be forgiven." And so it was just amazing.
And you know, when we look at because we see, that's one thing about social media, you know exactly how many people are responding.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's tens of thousands of people responding, and obviously we can't share all that. And the reason we show that bigger number, show it again, that bigger number, 7 million something, is because many of those people, they maybe saw one of the testimonies, heard part of it, but we really look at that second number, that is much smaller, but that's still significant. Give us very quickly, I'm talking fast because we got a lot happening these 30 minutes. What about the last campaign? Because that really, we have also learned how to do things better, haven't we? Give us from the Urdu language, which is primarily spoken in Pakistan.
So in the Urdu language, primarily in Pakistan, we have 17,367,501 people reached. That means they've took part in some of it, maybe watched 30 seconds, maybe they watched 30 minutes. But then the big number, 2.6 million participated in the entire campaign, beginning to end, experienced the whole gospel message.
And it's still a little bit happening there, but it goes right down to 2,640,906 individuals.
Unbelievable.
Because we get that watch the whole thing. And again, as I said, we are learning how to do it even smarter than before. And of course, we spend tens of thousands of dollars. We've got to be honest about that. We spend tens of thousands of dollars to target, and I say that lovingly, the very language groups where there are so few believers. Anything that stands out from the Urdu campaign to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So on one day we had Mohammed, Ahmed, and Hafiz, all Muslim men. They all
sound like
messaged
Baptist name.
Right. So they all asked how they could receive Jesus. And then, of course, in every campaign, there's people that were healed. Taj Mahal, he had asthma for 30 years, totally healed. And then Sangu, her mother's back, totally healed during the campaign.
And so we show testimonies, primarily my preaching, and then we show testimonies translated into these languages. Now, we used to have music, but we stopped doing music. That might surprise people. Why did we stop doing music?
So we were monitoring how many people would come in. The reason we stopped music is we noticed when the music started, there was a drop off. But then as soon as you came back on, it kept climbing and climbing and climbing.
That goes against everything I've ever believed. I thought the music would bring more people. So when he came and told me this, I said, "Are you sure?" Yeah, it just dropped. So I guess they just want to hear the gospel and see what God has done. It's amazing. We're learning a lot, aren't we?
Absolutely.
And your partnership is making this possible. Thank you, Dean, for
Absolutely.
that update. Very, very positive. You see behind me the words, "When Life Hurts." That is based on Brian Stiller's book, When Life Hurts, And we're offering this book to you, by the way, available with a gift of any amount. The gifts that you give go towards the advancement of the gospel. Let me just again, in case you don't know Brian Stiller, he's well familiar certainly among believers across Canada, the former president of Tyndale University in Toronto, Ontario, former president of the Evangelical Fellowship of Canada, currently the global ambassador for the World Evangelical Alliance. Welcome again, Brian.
Oh, Peter, great week.
I was still thinking about yesterday's program. It was clear that hearts were being touched, if they could feel what we felt here in the studio. But just recap, we talked yesterday a little bit about the source of pain. Where does pain come from? Yeah, just recap it for us.
Pain is an inevitable reality to every human person. We live in a fallen world. The environment is polluted. Our lives have been affected by brokenness, by sin, by self-centeredness, whether it's on the personal level, the community level, or on international level. We see this competition and this hatred that goes from country to country. That manifests its same reality into lives, into families. So we live in a broken world. We're living in a pandemic where an evil substance is breaking into the body and destroying people. We're looking for solutions. So inevitably sorrow and pain come to us. But what we did learn is, as C.S. Lewis said, pain is a megaphone that God uses to get our attention. So there is something in the middle of pain and suffering that has value. I told the story of where this book came from, out of a family sorrow. The loss of a young person in our family by way of taking their own life. It was a riveting moment. Our lives were crushed. The pain was almost more than you could bear, and for the parents it was even more. And yet I watched, out of that suffering and that sorrow, something began to happen that produced ministry and life and energy you would never think would come out of pain and suffering. And so the gospel promises us something. So pain comes to us, suffering comes to us, but there is a way out of pain into healing.
I think what you're describing there, and of course I don't know the details naturally of what you're describing, but there's a pain where you can't even say anything. You can't even, there's no words you can say to comfort. And maybe somebody is sensing that today. It's like, I suppose if you're in a situation, maybe you can give the person an embrace or say I love you, but you can't really comfort it. And yet you're saying that in that kind of intense pain, for people watching, is there real hope, Brian? You mentioned yesterday we're going to talk a little bit about hope, so I'll just take it in that direction.
Hope is the essential element that gives our mind and soul opportunity to think beyond my pain. Now, in the middle of pain and suffering, we make a choice. There's a wonderful story in Matthew where this Roman leader had a servant that was dying. He came to Jesus, and Jesus was going to the place where the servant was. And the Roman master said, you don't have to come. You can just say the word. Now, what was going on in his mind? Well, first of all, he trusted that God was in control. And then he trusted that God would do something. So there's two elements to hope. One is to say there is something other than what I'm experiencing. There is something beyond that deep inner soul where your innards just are traumatized. You feel so ill by what you've experienced. It may be a broken relationship. It may be a failed life. It may be a whole number of things that you think is your reality. You can stay there. You can keep the door of hope shut by fear. Sometimes pain person becomes comfortable with. What you know, you stay with. And so fear keeps that door shut. Hope is to say, and it's a choice we make. God doesn't come magically into our lives and break open the door. Hope is something we do. Hope
Interesting.
is to say, there is something beyond what I'm experiencing. Again, the C.S. Lewis line, pain is a megaphone that God uses to get our attention. So, as you're watching this program and you're sitting in the midst of deep sorrow, you can stay there. You can be comfortable, in a sense, in your sorrow. You can feel sorry for yourself the rest of your life. And I'm sorry if I'm being a little bit severe, but hope is a door that you open. No one opens it for you. To say, I am not here alone. I mean, just imagine, we're in this incredible universe. The universe, do you realize that the universe is expanding at the speed of light? And it's been going on for billions of years? And here in this sphere called the Earth, you and I, populated by billions of people, you're not alone. God is in your life today, whether you feel it, whether you know it, whether you sense it or not. And the program that Peter and I are doing today is our way of alerting you that God cares about you, and he wants to bring something out of your sorrow and suffering. But it doesn't happen. God doesn't break down doors. There's a wonderful metaphor, Peter, in Revelation. It says God stands at the door and knocks. And the painter, when one of the great Solomon paintings, I think, one of the painting shows Jesus knocking at a door. But you notice in the door, there's no latch on the outside. That door can only be opened from the inside. And that's what hope is. Hope is to say, I am going to see and feel and hear something beyond what I know or what traumatizes me now. And I'm going to say, God, please give me new understanding. Help me in this sorrow and suffering. It's a door that you open from the inside.
That is so powerful. It made me think of a scripture from the Song of Solomon where there's a description of the bridegroom moving a doorknob but not being able to open the door, waiting for the person, the bride inside, to open that. And in that story in the Song of Solomon, she's saying, nah, I got other things to do. And she waits. And so could it be that right now this is a God moment for you? Could it be that it's not by accident, just by chance, you're switching channels and here you come to this? Could it be a purpose in this? That what Brian just said, that you open the door of hope. And God is there to help you. God is there to help you. Could this be your moment? Brian, I know in this book you talk about 5 signposts of this journey, which begins with hope. But I want to come to that. Let me again, there's no way in a few short programs that we can do justice to this book. In fact, I think many of you want to have it as a resource in your life and share it with someone else. Most of all, you want to read it yourself. So there are many reasons for you to order this book. And thanks to Brian working with our ministry in this, we are able to offer it without asking any specific amount, finances. We just say, whatever you can give. If you can give $1, you do so. With what we're doing around the world, we hope that many will give large amounts. But we will send it to you, free and postage paid. You will have this book, so you'll see that on the bottom of the screen there from time to time. And so please take note of that, and we will get it to you as quickly as we possibly can. And thank you, Brian, for helping us to offer that to people. And whatever you give, of course, goes to advance the gospel. Now, to that question about 5 signposts, you probably touched on some of them already, but I just drilled down on that for a moment.
Hope, in my view, hope begins with, first of all, believing. And belief is something we choose to affirm. Now, some things we believe because we've grown up in an environment or with ideas, and we just kind of assent to various beliefs. But belief is also something we choose. We choose to believe this over this. So when it comes to opening your life to God, hope begins with belief. Belief by even as simple as this: God, I don't know if you are there, but I know there is something beyond me and this physical universe. Just start there. Open your mind by belief. There is something beyond me. Now you say, I don't believe there's anything beyond me. We're going to die as a dog and that's the end of it. That's your choice. But remember, that's a choice of belief. There's no hope if that's where you, if that's your choice of what you believe, there's no hope. There's nothing further I can say to you. It's over. But if you say, I choose to believe there's something beyond my life, this creation, and I'm going to open my mind to that idea of a God. So belief, trust. And then as you open your mind, begin to trust what comes into your mind. Peter and I are talking about this week, and we want you to trust the ideas. Now, by trusting them doesn't mean that you completely believe them. You simply trust them and begin to move to the third area, which are possibilities that are beyond what you have thought of, that God is bringing into your life, maybe through another person, maybe through this program. And then determination, making a choice to leave suffering as being the final location of your life into something else. But now, be realistic about it. Don't just be expect that God's going to kind of drop something from the sky, or something magical is going to happen, or you're going to win the lottery. Don't be silly about it. Be realistic. But belief begins with your choice. Is there something beyond me? Making the determination that you're going to open your life to what's beyond you, and then begin to receive the information that gradually, God is gentle. He is gentle. He doesn't come barging in. He only speaks to you when you're ready to listen. And if you're ready to listen, you'll be amazed as to what you begin to hear in your own heart and from others. Things that Peter have said, if you've watched Peter for a while, and you hear Peter say some things and you say, I don't know what in the world he's talking about.
Yes.
But as you open your mind, all of a sudden you'll say, oh, now I understand. So we choose to open the door of hope.
You know, when you're describing that, I'm thinking of a person that I had some interaction with recently, a professed atheist. Hasn't given much thought of it. It's just, I'm an atheist. It seems like a reasonable thing. And I gave this person a book from a former atheist. And I thought, even receiving that, he opened the door.
Exactly.
He opened the door, and he liked the book, but he just opened the door. And so I think that is what you're having an invitation to do, to open the door to the possibility. I want to, there's something here I was reading, Brian, and this is from Saskatchewan. And
My home province.
Yeah, your home province. This is in one of our major newspapers today, or a few days ago, but I printed it off today. And I'm not going to give the person's name, though it is in the article for Canadians to read. So here's a person from Saskatoon, had a tattoo and piercing parlor, and closed down 5 months into the pandemic, forced the closing of his tattoo parlor. And he has suffered all kinds of things, been in a car accident, his left leg destroyed, infections, need amputation. And this has led to opioid addiction, terrible struggles, and pays $300 a day for the opioids. And he's even been driven to rob people at knife point, and he keeps doing this, terrified that the next opioid overdose is going to be his last. But he feels he has so little to lose. And should such a person from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, be watching, just talk to that person for a moment.
You know, there's something about moving into a new stage of your life and that is embrace your darkness. Embrace your darkness. Don't let darkness be your fear. Look at your darkness. Speak its name. Talk to somebody about it. That's why the AAs, Alcoholics Anonymous, is so incredibly powerful with those, because when you're an alcoholic and you go to an AA meeting, you say, I'm an alcoholic. You speak its name. You speak into the darkness. So you, my friend, speak into your darkness, because it's in your darkness that you will find the light. If you allow darkness to continue to hold you back, to paralyze you with fear, you'll go nowhere. But God wants you to embrace the darkness, because He's embraced the darkness for you. And in that darkness, you will find His light. Pain, suffering is a way for us to see and to hear and to feel and to understand. And it gives us an open heart to make a choice to move forward. To be paralyzed, leprosy, wonderful metaphor here. And it was discovered by Dr. Brand. And he found that leprosy dullens you to feel pain. That's why leprosy is so disastrous. And he found that when you discover that you can no longer feel, that opens you to your physical reality on how to move into healing. And so embrace your darkness, because in the darkness you'll find the light. God is there.
One of the things you address in your book is, what does hope do for us? And I feel like today, you started there, Brian. You said that hope is a choice. You open the door to hope. Yeah. You do that. If someone would choose to do that, how do you address that in your book, or whatever way you want to address? What does it do for you once you embrace hope?
One of the great stories is of Viktor Frankl. He was in Auschwitz. He was a Jewish psychiatrist, and he was in Auschwitz. And he watched people, strong, muscular people, die. He found physically weak people, they survived. And so as a psychiatrist, he was interested in knowing, I mean, he's living there in Auschwitz, and he's dying himself. And so he's interested in seeing the difference. He survived Auschwitz. And he came up with a theory called logotherapy. Therapy by the Logos. And of course, Logos is the biblical word for God. So he said, logotherapy, or people who survive, are those who are transformed by what they hope for. So in the Auschwitz camp, he saw people who had hope for something beyond their suffering, were transformed by it. Can I read a quote of his?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, just listen to this. This will take me a minute, but it's really worth you hearing. And this is Viktor Frankl writing back in after he got out of Auschwitz in Poland and survived the Holocaust. He's a man who went through suffering, and he understands, not just from a biblical point of view, he is biblical as a Jewish person, but he speaks as a psychiatrist. So listen to this. He said, if there is meaning in life at all, then there must be meaning in suffering. Suffering is a part of life. And he says, I was struggling to find the reasons for my suffering, my slow dying. In a last violent protest against the hopelessness of imminent death, I sensed my spirit piercing through the enveloping gloom. I felt it transcend that helpless, meaningless world. And from somewhere, I heard a victorious yes in answer to my question of the existence of the ultimate purpose. And he concludes this way. Woman's main concern is to gain pleasure. No, pardon me. Man's main concern is not to gain pleasure or to avoid pain, but rather to see meaning in our lives. That is why each of us are ready to suffer, on the condition to be sure that suffering has meaning. Hope is an open door, but it's a door that we open. It's not open for us. Some people will help to open it, but sometimes somebody's trying to help you and you just hold on to the latch and keep that door shut. Embrace your darkness. The two metaphors. Open the door when you hear a knock. And Peter and I this week, we are knocking on your door. We're just tapping.
You know, Brian, the reason this rings so true, what you're describing, and you judge it for yourself at home, but it rings true to me. I've had to make those choices, and I often don't give details, but I tell you about a time where I was weeping, and I don't weep a lot. I'm not the weepy kind of a person. I was crying. I was feeling desperate. And in that moment, when I was willing to say, God, I'm going to trust you. I'm going to love you no matter what, that changed everything. And I want to say again in the closing minute that we have together, if you want to say that, if you want to say, God, I surrender to you. You may say, I don't know everything about Jesus, but I'm willing to speak the name of Jesus Christ. Come and show me who God is. I surrender my life, and you'll see how God will begin to work in you. If we can help you in some way, we have some material that we send out free of charge. You can see it right there. You can just text me, or you can go online, or you can call, and we'll send it either way. But so all those possibilities are there. Just give us your contact information, and we will get that to you. And then I want to remind you of Brian's book, When Life Hurts, The Threefold Path to Healing. And as the nature of a half-hour telecast is, we constantly run out of time. And just the very first chapter of Brian's book is so enlightening. Why? Sometimes, we are in a hopeless state. We feel like we're hopeless because of something self-inflicted. We are disappointed with ourselves. Other times it's the surroundings that are beyond our ability to change. But in all that, there is hope with God. This book is available for any gift. If you can give $1, some must give much more than that. It helps us to advance the gospel, but we're sending this book to you. My time has run out. Thank you, Brian, for sharing today. And we're going to be back tomorrow, and we believe this will be very meaningful. Remember, you are loved.
Thank you. Your participation makes this global gospel ministry possible. To share your prayer request or to help bring the gospel to those who have never heard it, call 416-745-1820. You can give at www.peteryoungren.org or send your gift to World Impact Ministries at P.O. Box 62039, RPO, Victoria Terrace, North York, Ontario, M4A 2W1. Or P.O. Box 433, Winchester, Kentucky, 40392-9800. Together, let's give everyone a chance to know God's love in Jesus Christ.